Hello, everyone, and welcome to our new series. My name is Yarden, and I'm part of the Microsoft Reactor team. We're really excited to welcome you all here today, and thank you for joining us. Before we dive into today's session, I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to Microsoft Reactor. Reactor is a community space designed to support developers, startups, students, and anyone curious about technology. We run free events, workshops, and meetups focused on learning, building skills, and connecting each other in tech. Whatever you're just getting started or already deep in the tech journey, Reactor is here to help you grow. The Reactor is dedicated to fostering environment of free learning and skill development, so don't forget to visit the Reactor for more resources. You can scan the QR codes here and we will send it also in the chat later. We have in total 10 physical Reactor spaces around the world in cities like New York, London, Sydney, and more. But our reach goes far beyond those locations, and communities include students, developers, and startups from over 150 countries. So go ahead and share in the comments where you're joining us from. Whenever you're joining online, you're part of a vibrant global network of tech enthusiasts and innovators. Also, we would like to stay connected beyond today. You can find more upcoming events, join our community, or follow us. Just scan the QR code here and join our newsletter. So just because before we're gonna get started, I want to welcome you to another great data skilling opportunity, Data Security for AI, next Thursday as part of innovative cutting edge series of 12 free live webinars. I will share the QR code. I will share the link in the comments as well. And you can get opportunity to win free GitHub prizes as well on this series. So one last thing, at Microsoft, we're committed to creating a safe, inclusive, and respectful environment for everyone. Here are a few points from our code of conduct. So please be kind, respectful to others, and let's keep this learning opportunity in a welcoming environment. So I would like to welcome over Charlie and Johan to our first session. So thank you very much, guys, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so
Welcome,
let's
everyone.
let's get started.
Yes, sounds good.
Yeah. My name is Johan. I'm a Norwegian data platform MVP. You can see my details here. And over to you, Charlie.
Hi there, Charlie Hinonia here as well. Real pleasure to be working alongside Johan on this. It's going to be a great session, and we look forward to hearing from you all as well. So this is me here, Charlie, a data platform MVP, similar to Johan. We hope that our experience and a bit of the what we discussed today can help you out with your DP-700 journey. So let's take a look here. This Reactor session here, which is a Learn Live type session, is focused on bringing us all closer to DP-700. Okay, we want you to know that we heard that there are many, many people who are waiting on this session, and so lots of people are basically going to be interacting with you. And so what we would love for you to do is to say hi on the chat, on YouTube or whatever platform you're using to interact with us. Say hi, tell us where you're from, and feel free to ask questions on there, and then they'll basically come up and we'll see that happening live as well. So it's good. I'm sure that we've got lots of people from all over the place, and especially with Johan's experience, I'm sure that we'll get through and we'll have a lot of great insights to share with you as well. Supporting us on this is two wonderful moderators who are our fellow MVPs as well, data platform MVPs. We've got Tayob Ali and also Ilgar Zarbaliev, who are actually long-standing MVPs, very interactive with the communities, and they're going to be supporting us while we speak to you live. They'll be answering a lot of your questions that you might post onto the chat in there as well. So feel free to use that. It's a resource that you can all use. It's only available during this session, so keep that in mind. And this way, Johan and I can focus on the content, and they have the harder job, I believe, actually going through and answering questions live as you put them. Next thing that we probably want to look at.
Get them to work, yeah.
Sorry, Go ahead.
No, I said just make sure to ask lots of questions so they can really work hard.
Yes,
that's what they're there
I'll be
for.
moderating one of the sessions in the future, so we'll see how it goes for those ones as well. All right, so next thing is, we're speaking of the future. We actually have many sessions in this series. So we're starting it off. We're kicking off this series for the reactor at the moment. So we're looking at getting started with data engineering on Microsoft Fabric. Tomorrow, actually, we've got another session which is focused on ingesting and managing data in Fabric. So they're going deeper and broader into the content. We're going to have a look in a couple of slides what this DP-700 is all about and why we've got these session breakdowns as they are now. And then basically we've got 2 sessions per week up until we finish the series. So as we said, tomorrow is ingest and manage data in Fabric using Data Factory and notebooks. On May 7th, we'll be implementing real-time intelligence in Microsoft Fabric. Now, these are all being presented to you by people from Microsoft or MVPs and supported as well by moderators who are MVPs as well. May 8th, we've got data warehousing in Microsoft Fabric. And then the Microsoft Fabric environment on May 14th, which also goes into CI/CD, which we'll touch on a little bit today as well, monitoring, and as well security, which Johan will be touching on in today's session as well. So keep in mind that today is an overall session, and then we're going into depth in future sessions as they move forward. Then on May 15th, we're talking about Fabric administration and governance, very, very important. And then a nice interactive session for everybody right close to when hopefully you'll be doing your DP-700 if you've got the experience and you've played around with the content to prepare for the exam day. And basically there'll be an open Q&A for everyone there. I'll probably be on that as well and asking questions, not answering them. All right, very important. Something that is available to us and to all of you as well is if you have a look at that, that link there, use it or use the QR code. There are basically sweepstakes occurring every week and winners are being drawn every week. There are 50,000 vouchers that are on hand there to be given away. Now, remember, DP-700 is what is called an intermediate level certification, or for the data platform, it's an advanced level certification because we've only got 1 or 2 stars for us on the data platform. So a Fabric Data Engineer is the DP-700 exam or the certification itself. And always very good to have is 100% exam discount to actually do them. They cost different amounts in different countries, so I'd always jump on that opportunity myself in any case. Another thing to keep in mind to help us on this learning journey, okay, on May 15th, 9 a.m. Pacific time or 4 p.m. UTC, or in summertime here at the moment, so just keep that in mind. You can actually put some questions into a Reddit forum or a channel. I can't remember if it's a channel or a forum. And if you join 24 hours beforehand, then you can ask lots of questions there. And then MCTs, MVPs, and Microsoft folks basically will be preparing to actually answer all those questions for you, focused on anything to do with Fabric, anything to do with data engineering. It's a perfect place to get free consulting and also answer a lot of the questions that you might have on the platform. So again, feel free to use that. It'll be, I can imagine, essential for us getting through the exams, and definitely something worthwhile partaking in from that perspective. So this is now, apart from the preliminaries that I just went through, this is where we're going to discuss and getting started with data engineering on Microsoft Fabric, the SaaS platform that is prepared to us, given to us by Microsoft. So we're going to start diving deeper into the fundamentals, and we're going to look at some of the core components. We're going to look at OneLake, what Lakehouses are, what warehouses are, what Delta format is, which is the basis inside, or the file basis or the storage basis in OneLake. And we're going to take a look into the different components and capabilities of Microsoft Fabric as well, especially focused on data engineering and on workflows. So what that means is we're going to cover DP-700 itself as an exam. Hello there from Colombia. We're going to take a brief look again, diving deep into, not deep, but covering all of the capabilities within Microsoft Fabric. And then we're going to touch on two aspects, which is ingesting data in Fabric and also integrating data within Fabric. With those little things and also a bit of CI/CD and security, I think we'll be pretty much running very close to the hour. All right. So first and foremost, we're going to take a look at DP-700. So let's take a look. It's designated as an intermediate role certification. It's focused on data engineering, or the data engineer per se. And very important to note is it's not one of those exams which you can do just based on theory. Johan can probably attest to this as well. But basically, You need to know what you're doing. So that means that you should have some experience in Fabric. If not within your enterprise or your environment, at least within the learning capabilities. There are many demos, many lab exercises, and many methods for you to get more experience hands-on in the Fabric arena. And it's basically going to be focused on three core areas, which are split pretty evenly. The first one here, which it shows, which is ingesting and transforming data. Super important for a data engineer. Securing and managing an analytics solution, and then monitoring and optimizing an analytics solution. So three core capabilities that are needed on this SaaS platform per se. Note down the bottom there, it says to us that we should be skilled at manipulating and transforming data by using structured or SQL, PySpark, and Cusco query language. So they're actually very heavy in the exam, so something to keep in mind. Make sure you get experience on using those three methodologies for actually manipulating and transforming your data. Okay. Oh, and there was a link there. There are going to be many links on all of the slides. Keep that in mind. Sometimes some QR codes as well. They will basically take you directly to certain pages on Microsoft Learn, which actually gives you a lot more information to how to get ready for the exam. So let's go a bit deeper into what DP-700 will be covering in the exam. As I said, that they basically hit three different areas in pretty equal footings. Usually for most exams, there are maybe 4 or 5 different sections. Here we've got only 3, but that tells you that each one has equal weighting, somewhere between 30 to 35%. So imagine that they will be basically equally scored, and the number of questions should be pretty much equal between the different categories. So implementing and managing an analytics solution is the first part, which basically talks about the Fabric environment. How do you configure the settings? How do you connect, for example, into CI/CD and Git for implementing lifecycle management? How do you configure security and governance within a workspace, within a tenant, et cetera, et cetera? And how do we orchestrate a lot of those CI/CD capabilities, and also orchestrating processes maybe within Fabric themselves, probably not around the data transformation side. The second component, which is of course super important for a data engineer, is ingesting and transforming data. So from that perspective, we're looking at loading patterns and reasons for those loading patterns, etc. Looking at batch data and also streaming data. So they're two major areas that are focused on. If you know anything about Lambda and Kappa architectures, it's basically that validated and method architected for Fabric. So the different methods are basically prepared there within Fabric to actually get us the different methods of getting and transforming that data. Last point here, which is also equal weighting, monitoring and optimizing an analytics solution. So we're not only expected to be able to transform the data and ingest it. No, we need to also know how to performance tune. We need to understand, how do we know when something has failed or succeeded? How do we know when to trigger other different types of events? How do we manage and respond to errors? Okay, so keep these things in mind. There is a study guide linked to at the bottom here. So take a look at that, and it gives you more and more information on how to prepare yourself for that, either through in-person led training or through live online training, basically, that you can go through as well as through this series. So some of you might already, some of us actually do have DP-203, But DP-203 came to end of life last month. So DP-700 is the new certification for that. Whereas before we were looking at other PaaS and SaaS services that might help us and tools that might help us get this data engineering landscape on track. Now we're focused for this certification, especially on doing it all through Fabric. Because Fabric now has a lot of rich integrations, and all of those capabilities that you might have seen in DP-203 are now streamlined and prepared to be first level services and capabilities within the Fabric environment. So keep this in mind, that we're talking about Fabric itself. You can definitely use a lot of the capabilities and skills that you've developed in possibly in 203 or in the other Azure data platform capabilities, tools, and services. But you'll find when we're working with Fabric that they've been catered for and brought to a closer SaaS experience within Fabric itself. So something to keep in mind. The audience that we need to consider here is that we need to make sure that we have experience in data engineering. So let's jump now to Johan talking to us about Microsoft Fabric as an ecosystem.
Right. So Microsoft Fabric is, of course, a bundle of different things. And from the first launch in 2023 until now, it has changed and expanded. So we have, as you can see here, we have Data Factory, we have data engineering, we have databases, SQL databases. There's real-time intelligence, analytics. That means data warehousing, data science, that kind of thing. And of course, Power BI, which is basically they've moved all the things that were Azure data and analytics into Power BI platform. Microsoft is betting heavily on Copilot. So of course, you will see Copilot everywhere, also in Fabric. Then we have the OneLake, which is the managed data store. And for complete data platform, you cannot really do that unless you have some data management and data governance tools involved. So Microsoft Purview is being integrated here. And of course, that's a broader Microsoft ecosystem thing. But also within Fabric, you have the Real-Time Hub and the OneLake Data Hub, which are the go-to places for Real-Time Hub is the data in motion, and OneLake Data Hub is your data at rest, where you can go and browse and look at the different data that you have available for you. So it is a very encompassing end-to-end data platform, and it is a SaaS solution. So it's easy to set up and get running. And if you haven't got it already, you have free, you can have the trial version for 64 days up and running within a couple of minutes. Right, so go next one.
Yeah, I like that there's an interesting new term that's been created by Microsoft on this in terms of transactional and analytical. They've created this new term called translytical, yeah. Basically trying to show that, hey, everything that can be done on the data platform is now directly integratable with Fabric. So great overview that you've given us there, Johan. And yeah, lovely new buzzword that we have to learn. But definitely a better one than could have been used from transactional and analytical per se as well. So what's the basis? So Johan showed us that OneLake was central in that last slide. And so let's talk a little bit about OneLake and how that works and how it basically helps us within the Fabric environment. So OneLake is basically similar to what Johan mentioned before, this OneDrive for Fabric. So it's where you're going to store and house all of your data. And each workspace is going to come up basically as a separate container within OneLake. So OneLake then can be used across your different Fabric workspaces, as you can imagine. And then what it allows us to do is implement a very data-centric and core service within your organization. Understand that there's going to be one lake per tenant. So there's going to be one across your whole tenant environment. And this is the way basically the data can be shared across all of your different areas. You might wonder, oh no, does that mean that we're going to have like what we used to call a data swamp happening? Well, hopefully not, because within OneLake, there are lots of capabilities to secure your environment and to manage it in a way that you can actually share out these different things. Some people refer to these things as products within the data environments, but you can consider them basically containers from our perspective, and that they can be accessed and secured and made available to different workspaces and different environments, both inside and outside of Fabric, as necessary. Not only that, but it actually allows the different applications to connect seamlessly or with very rich integration capabilities into these data stores. Okay, and as a result, the technology that was used to build OneLake is ADLS Gen 2, Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, which is this hierarchical blob storage that is available to us, and which, as data engineers, you probably already know about and probably have used. And basically, it allows us then to structure that data in certain ways that we can actually continue using it from where it comes in raw to actually putting it through the processes and capabilities for us to get to the insights that we need on the analytical side.
An interesting point there, Charlie, is that because it's based on ADLS Gen 2, it also has the same APIs. So you can actually read and write from the OneLake with the same API connections that you do.
Excellent. Agreed. Very, very good point there to make. And basically it means that it should be a fairly seamless experience for the majority of us. Okay. Yep. The only thing to understand is that it's very, very richly integrated into Fabric, because then Fabric sees this as the first party service used for storage as well. So yes, same thing with ADLS. But definitely the place to be, especially when you're thinking about enterprise, which is where Microsoft is targeting this SaaS platform, which is for the enterprise. The last point there on the screen is that Azure Databricks Unity Catalog integration is in development. So this is the metadata on top for us to be able to add additional information and sort of valid capabilities for us to catalog the data that we're working with. And of course, when we're talking about cataloging, etc., we've got very rich integration with Purview. We've got capabilities and integrations with third-party like master data management services and stuff like that, data governance, etc., in order to help us through there as well. So that's the concept, is that it's an intelligent data foundation within Fabric that is accessible and usable across all of the environments. What does it use under the hood? It uses Parquet and Delta Parquet underneath. So the Parquet gives us that analytical capability for compression and running very intense analytical queries on compressed data. And then the transactional part is this Delta Parquet capability. So this way we can have data that's changing all the time. And it basically keeps track of those changes, allows us to have time series and actually being able to go back in time and look at different things there. So within the Lakehouse and within the data warehouse, these capabilities are available, and they actually offer us lots of different capabilities as a result, from having unstructured and semi-structured data to structured data held there as well. Anything else we should add to that?
Yeah, it's just, if you're coming from a Databricks world and you're thinking, what is Delta Parquet? Is that like Delta Lake? And exactly, it is the Delta Lake format. It's just that Microsoft had decided to call it the Delta Parquet format. But yeah, it's the same thing. So you can write a Delta Lake table from, say, Databricks, and it will be available or readable instantly in Fabric.
Exactly. Yeah. Very good point. All right, so let's move on. Let's go to this bring data in from everywhere. So as we already just now touched on OneLake, okay, and Johan gave us a great segue into this slide, saying that, for example, when you're creating Delta tables within Databricks, etc., that basically is accessible here in this environment. So different concepts that we want to highlight on this slide. Firstly is that we've got the storage layer, which is the OneLake. And then we've got the different capabilities to get data in and out of our Fabric service. So there are different things here which you can see: Customer 360, Finance, Service Telemetry, and Business KPIs. These are all representing different types of data that we might need to access within the ecosystem for our analytics platform or our data operational data platform, we can call it, within the SaaS platform in Microsoft. And different systems may lead us or lean us towards different types of data that we want to work with. Again, be it structured data, data coming from relational databases, which we might want to use mirroring for because they're transactional and high volume and are changing all the time, to data that might be accessible or residing in other clouds or in different storage platforms. Even within Azure, we might have different data lakes, which might be available to us through different ADLS storage accounts. So the different capabilities we want to touch on first on this slide is down the bottom here. It says multi-cloud shortcuts. Shortcuts are basically the capability to link to repositories or data that is residing somewhere else and stays somewhere else. And this way we can call on that data and query that data while it basically exists somewhere else. And so we'd be using capacity or compute that might be residing somewhere else. If we want to get the data and have it sort of stored in near real time inside OneLake or within Fabric, we can basically use mirroring, which is on the left side here. And there are now some very strong integrations with things such as Azure Cosmos DB, Azure SQL Database, which, although we have that now, as well as Fabric databases in Fabric. But if we've got other applications that are using Azure SQL databases, we can actually mirror that data into Fabric itself. So this is making a copy of the data that gets housed and stored in this Delta Parquet format, ready and accessible basically within our environment. Other things such as MongoDB as well is accessible and usable from that perspective. And they're building in more and more mirroring integrations from that perspective too.
You already have as well the Snowflake mirroring setup, so you can connect to tables in your Snowflake account and mirror them into Fabric. And still in preview, I think, but Unity Catalog is also something that you can create a mirrored copy of inside Fabric, so that you can use your data platform, either Snowflake or Databricks, as the backend, and then expose the data into Fabric using mirroring.
Yeah, really good point. Since Snowflake as well is multi-platform, so it can exist in AWS, in Azure as well. So it's a really good concept to have, that we know that these things are available to us, and we don't need to then. It makes it easier for us to make decisions around which data platform we want to use to transform, ingest, and basically report on all of this data. We're not always worrying anymore in terms of which platform to choose. Microsoft's helping us with that per se by making it so easy to integrate, ingest, and basically connect to all of those data stores. Keep in mind, though, that these different data sources are going to have different capabilities and are used in different ways. So although it might be mirroring and creating shortcuts, it's not considered to be the part of the ETL process. We could see it as a source that we want to use, but we still need to make sure that we're extracting, loading, transforming that data in different ways for use and viable access within Fabric. We might want to curate it, we might want to augment that data, we might want to cleanse it in different ways, because the data that we're accessing is basically focused on the operational requirements that they're basically being used for. So just keep that in mind, that we're talking from these two perspectives, mirroring and shortcuts. We're talking mainly around the access to those data stores. Given that as well, some of those different data stores or different data sets might lead us more towards using different compute capabilities. Okay, and as in the middle there, above the OneLake icon, you can see serverless compute. So within there, we've got the different capabilities, the different engines per se that you might want to use to actually access, manipulate, and report on that data. So you've got Spark, which might be used for data engineering, for example, and manipulation there and transformations. Pardon?
We'll just have to
Johan?
do something about that.
Did I lose you? Hello? I'll just continue since I'm not sure what's going on. Yeah. So we've also got capabilities around KQL. Okay, and for basically looking at event streams and large data sets which are on time series. And then we've got analytics and the different capabilities around Power BI and other different solutions that are available there too. So keep in mind that it basically should be helping us address lots of different levels within the different data stores that we're actually getting access to. And then we looked at the services that Johan already discussed before, so we won't touch on those too much right now, but we might be leading into that further down the track.
Yeah, I think it's important to know that there are actually 4 different compute engines that we're talking about here. So you have Spark, you have SQL, which is basically T-SQL, even though it might vary a bit. I mean, the SQL database is, of course, pure SQL, whereas the data warehousing is a bit different, but it's still close enough that we can call it traditional SQL. And then you have KQL, which is the Custo, or the real-time intelligence databases. And of course, analysis services, Power BI, is also actually a compute engine. Right. So before we jump into how to use Fabric more, let's talk a bit about the concepts of the platform. So we'll be talking about the organizational concepts, workspaces and settings and security. So you need to things that you need to understand in that setting. So the core of Fabric, again, are you coming from Power BI world? This might be quite familiar to you, but if you're coming from an Azure data world, this is probably new. So first of all, we have a Fabric tenant, and a tenant is connected to an Entra ID tenant and a Microsoft 365 tenant. So all of these are connected together. There might, of course, be more than one tenant involved in your organization, but for most cases, we will probably be talking one-on-one tenants, and this concept will we just stick to that. Underneath there, we have capacities. There might be one or more capacities inside your Fabric tenant, depending on how your organization is setting that up. And the capacity is, of course, the compute units that you have. And we have different kind of capacities. We have your Fabric capacities. If you're still on Power BI Premium, you can be there until your contract is up for a renewal. And then, but that is still looked at as a capacity, F64 and above. Or you might be on a shared capacity, which is when you're on a Power BI Pro license, you have a shared capacity setting as well. And then underneath here, we have the organization of your workspaces. So we have domains. Domains can be used, or you can choose to not use them, but they are groupings of workspaces, so they're a logic construct. And then you have all the different workspaces, which is where you're hosting your data and your services. And you might have a workspace sprawl with lots and lots and lots of different workspaces. And this is why a domain might be useful, to group them together so it's easier, because you can filter both on workspaces and domains when you're looking for things. And underneath each workspace, you have your items, your Fabric items. So it's important to understand this hierarchy here. Domain, workspace, items is basically where your security lies. We'll cover that in a bit. And then you can organize one or more workspace per domain, one or more workspace per capacity, and of course, as many capacities, domains, workspaces as you want underneath the tenant. So let's go a bit closer on your workspaces, because that's basically the basics of Fabric in organization and security. So it's a centralized environment for your data engineering. They are where all your data is stored. As Charlie mentioned earlier, the OneLake is a tenant-wide storage, but each workspace gets their own separate folder. So you can isolate all the data, or all the data within a workspace is isolated from everyone else unless you give access, which is important. And that's also why we can avoid the data swamp. Then the workspaces facilitate collaboration across teams, enabling multiple data engineers and stakeholders to work together on shared datasets, notebooks, and all the pipelines that are within the controlled environment. Then we can manage data and access security because the workspace is a top-level security construct. So that only authorized users can view or edit data and resources within, which means that you can place role-based access on a workspace level. But it is important to know that you have different versions here. You have admins and users, and both of these groups have read and edit access to your workspace and the data underneath and the services underneath. Then you have viewers, and viewers can view the data, but they can't edit anything. So it allows you to at least start granulating out your security. Then you have your environment management. So you can do the data storage, as I mentioned. You have your security, enabling governance. So it's easier to manage your environment, and you can connect that up to a GitHub account or a DevOps account if you want. And workspaces play that key role in your data engineering solution, which means that you can build your DevOps pipelines. You can start monitoring and optimizing resources over time. And of course, again, OneLake integration, which is where all the data is stored in a separate folder. When we look at a fabric, first of all, I want you to look at the bottom left screen. Even though this is an old screenshot, it says data engineering there. Now you will only see a 1 out of 2. It will be Power BI or Fabric. This is important because when you can get to Fabric either via app.powerbi.com or via app.fabric.microsoft.com. If you go via the Fabric route, you will see Fabric down there. If you go via the Power BI route, you will see Power BI down there. You can still go into a Fabric workspace through Power BI, but some functionality might be missing. And if you end up in that perspective, just go down to the left bottom and change your perspective from Power BI to Fabric, and you will see things are working again. Things like you can import a notebook in the Fabric setting, but you cannot do that in a Power BI setting. So first of all, you have your listings of your items and folders underneath your workspace. This is all the different organizational folders that you have, all the different items and services that you have created on that workspace is visible here. New item, of course, or new folder means that you can create a new item and group things together. And this is a new data warehouse, new lakehouse, or KQL, for instance. Then the third here is information about your workspace. So licensing, that star that you see there, or the diamond, that is means it's a premium or a Fabric capacity workspace. You can see that if there's a deployment pipeline associated with it. If it's a trial, that's left icon there, then I don't know if you can call it a kettle with a swirl in it or something. That means it's a trial capacity. Number 4 lets you manage access to your workspace, and you can do that on Enter ID groups, or you can do that on users. And the 5th one is workspace settings. And when we go to workspace settings, you can you need to have a workspace admin role to be able to see this. But when you see that, you can go in and managing your ADLS Gen 2 connections or log analytics connections, set up Git integrations with CI/CD, whether that is Azure DevOps or GitHub. You can configure the OneLake settings here to enable a cache for shortcuts, which might speed up your queries. You can create workspace identities to use as an authentication method. For instance, if you have a real-time intelligence solution and an event stream that wants to connect to a privately protected event hub, you can use that connection from here. Probably we will see things coming, see more uses of those workspace identities going forward, but right now they are more basic. You can also add new monitoring event houses, which means that you can start monitoring your Fabric capacities from KQL database inside the event house. And you can also manage settings like different workloads, how the Spark configuration is set up, setting a default Spark pool, which is an important thing to do because the default Spark pool setting that comes out of the box is probably a bit too large for most companies. Yeah, compute configuration for notebooks and Spark job definition and so on. There are lots of different things that you can do. You can even add and manage Apache Airflow from here. Then let's take a look at the data security. So you have your workspace roles, and as I mentioned, those workspace roles will grant you access to as an admin or user. You can get access to all the items that are there, all the data that is in OneLake. If you grant a view access, people will be able to see the items, and that also includes things like semantic models, but they won't get access to the OneLake itself. But you can, on the level beneath here, the item permissions, you can go into an item, say your Lakehouse, and grant permissions directly on the item without granting access on the workspace. And of course, when you're dealing with Spark or T-SQL or KQL or the VertPack engines, the compute engines, you can also grant specific granular permissions on the compute level. And then you have the OneLake data access controls as well that grants you even more details. So there are lots of levels where you go in here. And again, you don't need to give full access on the workspace. You can go further down the line to grant access there instead.
Quick point there, Johan, as you mentioned, the OneLake data access controls as well. So an important thing to understand for everyone on the live stream here at the moment is that given that you can actually put permissions down on the OneLake level, it means that we're able to have a lot more stewardship and different centers of excellence focus on those different data domains.
Yeah.
So
the
domain
part here
having
is
this data in the OneLake, please.
Yeah, no, I just said that the domain part is, even though it was kind of curious when it first started, I mean, apart from the data mesh side, but it really gives you a lot more to play with in terms of organizing and securing your environments.
Mm-hmm. Especially as your enterprises grow and you've got lots of different departments and capabilities. A lot of that the data, let's call them products, we're talking data mesh now, but those sort of capabilities are basically, you want to highlight or make available different aspects or different components of those things to the different providers within the organization. So it's a great place to really understand where your security lies. And it's wonderful that it's actually going all the way down to that base, which is within OneLake. So sorry to cut you off, and happy to continue.
No. Let's, I see we're a bit shorter on time still, so let's just jump quickly to this. It's important to understand both from when you're trying to understand what's happening, but also from a security standpoint, but also from a functional standpoint, is that whenever we are logging in to Fabric, we are logging in using your single sign-on with a Microsoft Entra, using your web browser. And what we're hitting then is the front end. So that's the .3 here. And everything we do when we're dealing with writing your notebooks, or you're creating your pipelines, or creating your event streams, you are working inside the browser. And it's only when you're hitting publish or run that things are being sent through the APIs to the backend or to the metadata platforms. So if your browser crashes, you might lose a lot of things because it hasn't been published yet. So And all these APIs are able, you can also then programmatically talk to these APIs. So you can start, that's where you can sync with your Gits. It's also where you can then push things from Git into the backend because you're talking directly to these APIs. So it's important to think about that when you're working in it, that what we're mostly working in and dealing with is your web frontend, or if you've started using VS Code, you can actually use that as well instead of the web frontend to play with a lot of different things. Talking about CI/CD though, Charlie?
Sure, why not? So this is the final concept that we're going to be covering in relation to the components that we need to understand for the analytics solutions in Fabric. And this is basically CI/CD. It's critical for the exam, so just keep this in mind. It's very easily connected to in the workspace. It happens at a workspace level, and it basically allows us then to connect to a repository, to GitHub or Azure DevOps, etc. If you really want to understand more, because we're just touching on these topics as Johan's been showing as well, the deeper view of CI/CD in Fabric is going to be hit on episode 5 in this series, which is on May 14th. So they'll go into depth with some demos of the capabilities, etc. And also, of course, don't forget to go into the Learn module, or if you're going to have in-person led training, to look at it from that perspective too. So what is CI/CD in Fabric? Now, CI/CD in Fabric happens, again, as I mentioned, within the workspace context. The lifecycle management in Fabric uses deployment pipelines and source control integration to help us achieve that CI/CD. What is continuous integration? Well, hopefully we already know that, but from a data space, sometimes we don't. The concept is basically that when developers work on different code bases or branches on their local machines, over periods of time, basically the changes divert a lot from each other, and we start to find that there are more higher likelihood basically of conflicts and bugs that might be apparent as a result of those larger durations where people are working locally. So continuous integration allows us then to bring these delivery pipelines closer so that they're more streamlined, and then those features are more effective and less buggy with less digression as it moves forward. The CI part allows us to avoid those bugs and code failures, and helps us then to continuously develop and release that functionality as it moves forward. So where does it work for us within Fabric? So within Fabric, a lot of the components and capabilities within there are basically things that you can actually post and branch and basically work on together. And that way you can integrate those better and basically work on those different items and elements and capabilities together from that perspective. The CI has a CD component, okay, continuous development. And that, of course, is the process of releasing automatically these updates into different stages of the environment, from dev, test, UAT, whatever it might be, pre-prod and then prod, for example. And it gives us that structured methodology of doing that. And how it's used within Fabric is that we've got these Fabric REST APIs that can then be plugged into automation capabilities within our pipelines and within our dev, test, and deployment capabilities to actually get us there. So the first point there says Git on that part. So this is all sitting within a workspace. And the Git allows our teams to collaborate using those branches, provide version control, and manage those incremental code updates and changes, and also see what's changed to those over history. The pipelines side then allows us to promote those into different environments like dev, test, etc., like we mentioned. And then the Fabric REST APIs, just to reiterate, enables the automation capabilities that we have to programmatically change all those CI/CD processes. So let's now talk a little bit about ingesting and storing that data in Fabric. So we're going to be focused on these two areas for the rest of the duration. We've got just about 10 minutes left, so I'll actually speed through some of this and see how it goes. The first thing here is that there are a number of different ingestion methodology and capabilities. There's no sense having a data platform if we don't have the methods to bring the data in. As we mentioned, we've already touched on these in the previous slides, but let's take a look at some of these things here. Data Flow Gen 2 is the low-code capability, the Power Query type approach that allows people to drag and drop different elements and to ingest that data and then work on it as it goes through. Data Factory pipelines allow us then to take a look, maybe using T-SQL as well and different capabilities there to solidify that the data coming in, and it's part of an orchestration layer, which then allows us to then maybe deploy these things and also schedule these things moving forward. Notebooks for ingestion are basically the capability to get data from other data sources. Notebooks are generally going to be used using Spark, Python, these different capabilities, Scala, etc. For us to also work on the next part, which is the manipulation side. And we already spoke about shortcuts and mirroring and how they allow us to connect to different data sources, either housing them within Fabric or connecting to them within their own repositories. Event streams are a little bit different here. So there, if you've used Azure Stream Analytics or other streaming capabilities, event streams are basically allowing us to take that fast path in the Lambda and Kappa capability, or PAT, which then allows us to process windows, work on very large time series type databases, and also trigger events and capabilities there. So these are stored in a different type of repository, not within the OneLake, but they're within a KQL database. And then, of course, the last capability there, or last method to get data, is just through direct uploads into the OneLake. Okay, so into the Lakehouse. And from there, you can start manipulating and working on things from there. So that's getting the data in. And this is now where we're talking about where we store those things. So we've just mentioned the Lakehouse. Lakehouse allows us to store things that are unstructured, semi-structured, and structured. Okay, CSV files, PDF files, different types of data parquet files, etc. there as well. And then we can manipulate those, usually using a Spark engine, but also with the capability to run SQL on top of some of that as well. The data warehouse is basically a SQL native capability. So that allows us to look at things from what we would traditionally be looking at from data warehousing. So basically structured data warehousing and dimensional modeling using the Kimball method or other methods, for example, slowly changing dimensions and the different schemas, so star, snowflake, constellation schemas and stuff like that as well for the different dimensional modeling approaches. So both of those are available. They are, the data warehouse might be stored within a SQL backend or also saved within the OneLake in Parquet or Delta Parquet. Then we've got SQL database for the relational tables and capabilities there. We can use it even for augmenting and processing and scheduling the different parts of our pipelines. So very rich SQL integration from that perspective as well. So you can use your SQL scripts and even run KQL on top of that too. And then speaking of KQL, the event house basically allows us to manage and manipulate data as it's coming in live and then take action on all of those. So that's a different type of data store, which is optimized for those large monitoring or event type workloads as well.
Just to mention that both Lakehouse and Data Warehouse are Delta. They are stored in OneLake, so they don't have a separate storage. Whereas the SQL database and the KQL databases both have their own proprietary format.
Yeah, fair enough.
But you can, of course, then you can also export that data to the Lakehouse or to OneLake if you want.
Perfect. So as we move on to what we're going to need to know for the exam. So part of what we need to really understand, the questions will be targeted against why and when. So that's how we know that we need to have experience in these data engineering concepts. So there are many ingestion methods and storage types, and we need to understand when and where we would use some of these things. For example, data volumes, we'd need to understand what sort of volumes we're talking about. Are we talking about high volumes? Okay, so then we might think about the ones that are most optimized for these very high volume pipelines, so data pipelines and the copy command, for example. Or if it's low to medium, we might be using data flows and shortcuts, for example, because then we can access those as need be without worrying too much about the ingestion. If we're talking about data types, we might be looking there in terms of whether it's structured, unstructured, or semi-structured. And then different methods such as data pipelines and data flows in the copy might be used for structured because they're already structured and there are capabilities within there. Semi-structured, we might be looking at notebooks and leveraging Spark or the Lakehouse for the ingestion side there too. When we talk about the third point there, ingestion frequency, of course, that's talking about the batch versus real-time processing. And as you can imagine, depending on which one of those we're looking at, we'd be looking at different components within the data, within Data Factory, within Fabric to implement those things. Then, of course, there's the different skill sets. Johan mentioned before that you might be coming from a Power BI background. And so those skills might mean that you're not too heavily into the coding side of things. So in that case, you might be going for the code-free data pipelines or data flows or a data flows Gen 2 type approach. Or if you're heavily into the transformations and ingestion from different locations, then you might be looking at notebooks. And of course, then if you're more into the event streaming side, then you might be very heavily into notebooks with KQL and integrations into Visual Studio and these sort of things as well. Going quickly into the next part, which is integration needs. Now, Microsoft and the Azure platform is very richly integrated into a lot of the Microsoft services and capabilities there, but you might need to integrate between different data warehouses, okay? So from that perspective, you need to decide what you're going to be using. Are you going to be using shortcuts? Are you going to be using mirroring? Or are you going to be using data pipelines to move data between those different lakehouses or data warehouses or event houses? Then we talk about performance. Now, understand that in the exam, there will be a big emphasis on performance. So we need to also think about how, what our performance requirements might be, either high performance or moderate, we'd expect in these sort of data platforms. And so we could use the copy command for high performance because it's been optimized for very high throughput. Or moderate, we might be using data pipelines and data flows. And then, of course, complexity. So if you want more complexity or the capability to work with more complexity, you'd be probably looking at the notebooks. Otherwise, you'd be looking at more of these tool or GUI-focused ones as well. Should we skip to the next section, Johan, so that not in terms of data store, but in terms of the next part?
Yeah,
the next one, I think, integration.
Yeah. So there are two primary high-level features that you need to think about: is the data flows and data pipelines. So the data flows, as Charlie mentioned, is your low-code interface, has lots of different transformations, both data and AI-based transformations available for you that you can transform easy and flexible. And it's quite good tool to use, especially if you're coming from a no-code, low-code kind of background. Data pipelines define a sequence of activities that can orchestrate an overall process. So it's both an orchestration tool, but also then building your pipelines to do transformation steps. So we should also think about notebooks and real-time analytics in this, but it again depends on the usage that you have. So for the pipeline concepts, you have your activities, and those activities can be different transformational steps. And then you have your control flows. Then there are parameters that you can set to make this more metadata driven. And then you have your different pipelines runs. Because when you're using completing a pipeline, you can use a validate option to check if it's been configured properly, and if it then should run interactively or on a schedule. The notebooks are essential tools when you're working in Apache Spark, but also for machine learning, and they use a web-based interface. Basically, what you're doing if you're familiar with Databricks or if you're familiar with Jupyter Notebooks. Key benefit is that it's a zero setup, so it gets started quickly. You can explore your data in here. It has built-in features to keep the data secure. It is really versatile, both in terms of analyzing different formats, as well as heavy in terms of what coding you can do. And because it also has text box in here, it's also a very good tool when you want to document your code or explain your code as part of it. And yeah, it has advanced authoring capabilities, as well as integrated data visualizations that you can run directly. So real-time data is its own thing. It's a specific service. They call it the real-time intelligence. And within this, you have your event streams, which, as Charlie mentioned, is a real-time data stream ingestion. So you can connect to lots of different sources, grab your events, windowing them up, aggregating them up, and analyzing over windows, or you can just stream data directly into your time series database, which is KQL. You can push that data to several places at once, so you can stream them out. You have your Power BI visualization. You have your activator. That means that you can start triggering things. So you can set alerts. You can create events that will then trigger and launch a notebook or launch something else. And of course, you have real-time dashboards, which, unlike Power BI, is better at displaying data in real time. Power BI might be a bit slow and might be a bit laggy when it comes to streaming data, as some of you might have noticed from before. So the real-time dashboards is where it's at when you want to have things going live. Right, with just a short minute left, we're actually over time. Practical tips for success.
Sure. So very important is to make sure that you have some hands-on experience using the platform and using the capabilities that are outlined in there. So within Microsoft Learn, there's a whole area there that allows us to look at the different capabilities and things in there too, and also different tutorial methods and also different lab exercises and things. There's also questions that you can subscribe to and then see where you are in terms of level setting, where you want to be for the Fabric exams, for the DP-700 exam. You'll see down there on the link, akm.ms Fabric trial. Very important to try that out or to use that, because then you've got access to the full capabilities within Fabric, and then you'll definitely be able to study and get your hands-on experience inside there. So use all the capabilities that are listed on this slide here. And definitely when it says sample projects, use something that is dear to you. So if you like boats, try to work out something to do with boats that you want to do with analytics. If you're into fitness, then try to get some data off your devices and to integrate that and so forth. But try to make it personal so that you actually get more out of it and can prepare that way for your exam. Last but
Let's
not
move
least,
back to what's going on next. Tomorrow. Tomorrow there's an ingest and manage data in Fabric with Data Factory and Notebooks. So more deep dive into the integrations that we just touched on today. Next week we'll have real-time intelligence and data warehousing. And then the week after that you will have the Microsoft Fabric CI/CD monitoring and security and administration and governance. And then 21st is the exam prep day. And of course, following up on that, you have the Reddit Ask Me Anything that Charlie mentioned in the start. We have to remember to talk about the discounts.
Yes. Don't forget to sign up for this. You might as well sign up for it and see how it goes. Again, weekly, they'll be giving away different free vouchers. So be sure to use that. We hope that you've enjoyed the time with us today, and we hope you haven't put Ilgar and Tayob through too much hassle. But we thank them very much for moderating during this time. If you have any more questions, feel free to go to that link and ask questions. There will be chats and things happening as we move forward through the series, and there will always be moderators on hand to ask that you can ask these questions too. Thank you so much, Johan, for working with me on this, and I really loved working with you on it too. we hope that you all have benefited from it. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing how things go with you guys in the future.
Good luck on the exam.
Definitely. Cheers all.